Welcome to Ireland Unfiltered. This week's guest is the wonderful Camille O'Sullivan. But before we go over to her interview, I'm joined by the wonderful Patrick Gawley.
Do that. Thank you very much, Dion. You've always got a compliment to kick off this bit.
I do, yeah.
Right. I'm here to tell you that we have a little bit of news about our competition.
Yeah.
As loyal listeners and viewers of Ireland Unfiltered will know, thanks to Carlsberg Unfiltered, we've been giving away a pair of tickets to every gig at Live at the Marquee Cork over the last few episodes. So we have a winner for that competition.
Oh, yeah?
It is Sandrine Dunlop.
Well done.
Yes, you got a lot of music, a lot of gigs to go to over the next few months. So well done, Sandrine. So stay tuned to Ireland Unfiltered because we'll have another great competition coming up over the next few weeks.
Thanks, Patrick. And now, before we go over to Camille, don't forget to subscribe on all the usual channels to Ireland Unfiltered. Camille O'Sullivan, welcome to Ireland Unfiltered. It's really great to have you here. You're just back from New Zealand and Australia with your fantastic Cave show.
Yeah.
But with the music of Nick Cave.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was really exciting. Been many times to Australia and to New Zealand. I was a bit nervous about bringing this particular show because Cave is from Melbourne. But he is a man I discovered in the mid-90s, a lovely girl, Justine Mitchell from Brisbane, gorgeous girl, handed me this cassette, said, listen to this. And I fell in love with his music. So over those years, as I was an architect student, to when I changed my career to become a singer, I've sung his music through all my shows. But I usually do a variety of different, people like David Bowie and Radiohead. And then I was asked to put together a show just of his work. And I was a bit scared of that because you don't want it to be seen as a tribute. And then when you love somebody's work so much, you've met them, you admire them, you go, this better be good. Because sorry to be so cork and tangential, but when you're not a songwriter, which is a weird thing in Ireland, when you're, what I realise now is a performer and almost not an actress because everything is truthful and it's me, but you're doing characters on stage. Those songs are so theatrical and so bittersweet, and some of the best love songs and some of the best kind of dark, rock evil songs I've ever heard. They're mining for gold. So you go with complete respect and that a lot of love and obsession, and that was many years. Not just sitting down thinking of the show, but many years of performing his work. Within a few months of sitting down, it all came through. And I'm quite a tough person on myself, but I'm very proud of this. And we were delighted and nervous. It was our third show we'd ever done in this beautiful 1930s venue in Auckland, where at the beginning of the show, they have this beautiful star constellation that starts and then shooting stars go, and these two I can't even say them right, Abyssinian lions with green eyes start, and the show kicked off. And it was brilliant. And then we brought it to Australia where we did some gigs there and also ones floating on the water. Wow. So then we bring it to London next week, and then we bring it to Edinburgh, and we bring it to the Olympia in Dublin on the 19th of October. So
does going on stage get any easier?
I think when if you've done a 6-week tour, you just get into it. A little glass of wine before you go up. I still get really nervous, and I can't exactly pinpoint why. I do my breathing, I do my makeup in the same order. I think of some of my best friends saying, don't worry, Camille, we love what you do. And you're like, hum. And I talked to my partner, and he used to say he'd like an airplane to crash into the house, so he didn't, he wouldn't have to go on stage. So a lot of performers are terrified.
Yeah.
It's. I think it's very hard for some people to understand that, because I think sometimes people mix, especially in this world where everybody's chasing fame. Like, I'm kind of, it's like this vacation is amazing, but it's driving me mad because it's not great money. The touring, when you finish a gig or when you're in it, it's the most beautiful feeling in the world. But the 70% of getting the gig right or being screwed by a venue or something, that part of it is very difficult. And, I think the nerves it's for many reasons. It's a feeling, oh God, will they like it? Will it be good enough? It's scared of like how the whole thing will turn out. And also something maybe I didn't realize as a Cork person, a social anxiety of shyness. You know, if I'm talking to you and I love a good chat, but I've realized that, and that's something I realized when I was a schoolgirl in Cork. I went, I chat a lot, but I think it's to get over quite a shy thing.
Yeah.
And then performing is wonderful, but it's kind of, it's even bigger because it's in front of, it's actually easier sometimes to be in front of an audience with a light on them and yourself, because you have a lot of power with the stage. But if you do a gig in front of 30 or 40 people like Bewley's, where one's falling asleep or, one's looking at you strangely, that's really hard because that's almost family. So you're just like going. But also I'm not, it's my fault because I've decided to be open to an audience. I haven't decided to do that to them, which I can do if I feel they're being cool. It's a bit like a date. If you're being cool with me, then I'm backing off. It's something, because before you used to go, oh, please like me. And you go, I've learned this one. We're backing off now. If you want a second date with me. So to be open is to see, are they laughing? Are they shy? What kind of day did I have? Am I down? And you channel into, that's just trying to be real. So you don't, what I'm talking about, the fakery of when you start is not knowing what is your voice. As a woman, should I dress like this? I'm getting closer to wearing dungarees. It's not going to interest anybody on stage. But realness, and my friend said, you're quite eccentric too. Why don't you show that aspect? So, light up rabbits are turning up on stage and, mirror ball hats and people are like, what's going on? Holding the moon in your hand. People are like, what's happening? But all the magical things I loved watching, like Wizard of Oz and all those great 40s movies. And now I'm kind of working on backing tracks and links and kind of recordings. Like recently for Carney Dream, it was like with Shakespeare quotes and stuff and old actors who'd been saying it. It's just really, you start finding your voice a little bit more.
But that moment you have where it's worthwhile. Like Barry Keoghan was one of our guests here, and he talked about when he first started acting, and suddenly he had these few seconds of this is it.
Yeah. You do. I mean, I never, like my sister was very surprised when I said I was leaving architecture to be a singer. She said, you sing? But she was living away in London at that stage. And I had done it in school. And I remember in school somebody handing me a tape. And this we were saying, Ashton was where Mario had been also in, just brilliant actor there. And I was actually working with his brother Rennie on a show called Anything Goes, and she just said, you have a great voice, and she gave me a tape, and it was Ella Fitzgerald and Sarah Vaughan singing, so I just kind of listened to it, and then I left it behind and I went off to do architecture. And then in third year or something, or a year out, Trinity, I did an audition for Jacques Brel's Alive and Well Live in Paris, and I was like, this music. I remember opening cupboards in my parents' house as a small child in Passage West in the village. And crying, kind of not, I didn't even understand what he was saying because it was in French and I wasn't, speaking it. And I felt so moved by it. And then when I started doing the show, and my dad never really, he didn't always come and see me sing. He came to that, and he came like 20 times with his friends. And I just knew then, I thought my career now, my future in architecture, this has really done some. And I did that, what you said about Barry is how I felt.
Right.
I felt like I don't need to go and do therapy or sort out, this happens all here. This is the most alive I've ever felt.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I'm confident.
But take me back then to Cork, because your parents met in Monaco, did they?
Yeah.
And your father was a racing driver.
Yeah. It's kind of bonkers. You think it was made up. He, Irish descent, he sees himself as Irish.
Okay.
Born in England. And then Formula 2, Le Silverstone and Monaco. My mum is French. And she met him there. And they got together and married, and we were born in London, my sister and I. And then my dad just wanted, none of the family, everybody had gone from Ireland 3 generations back, America, Canada, England. And my dad had a romantic idea of buying the land back my family had owned
Right.
and moving back to Cork. And my mother was very, like we lived, he had done boxing, he was a racing driver. When he came back, he was a builder, and then he became a world champion of sailing. So even
Okay.
working with the Olympics team, the man is
Right.
like, he does his own thing. So kind of, he was great inspiration for, he always said to me, just do it. And I'd be like, as a child going, what does that mean? So now I kind of understand a little more when I'm kind of like, oh God, I have to go and do this gig. And that presence of the two of them, quite different personalities, a cool, funny, Irish, English person, and the, enigma of my mother, and very shy. And I feel very lucky as a performer because I feel I've got this kind of all these different cultures. If I was just French, I don't think it would be interesting enough. It'd be all emotion. But the blackness of an Irish person, the darkness of humour, the certain madness, and then the reserve is really brilliant mixed with being emotional.
Do you think Irish people are reserved?
I think that drink and reserve and madness all go together. I think there's some kind of like flame that's lit. I think there's a shyness.
Yeah.
And I think it's lovely. I think it's what makes us, that's what I miss home. I feel it's real. We're very chatty, but I think innately there is a shyness.
And do you notice it in audiences? Do you notice a difference in audiences
In
here?
some places, yeah. I think the younger people are far more together. Like I'm like a child compared to them. They're all like, but I think, there's a certain age group that we're all like, I'm sorry. And like everybody abroad is like, Jesus, why do you keep on apologising? And like I said, it's just part of our dialogue at home, and you're trying to stop. And I hate it because one part of me loves it because I feel that I always return like a home bird to Ireland. I feel it's still real. People are real. I know what I'm getting. And sometimes in New York you get that. They talk back at you and you go, well, it's kind of Irish. I mean, they're saying it like they, but I mean, different to the Irish, they, oh, she's great, she's shit. Like you're just going, you can never tell really well.
Yeah. Some of the neurosis is knocked out of the Irish Americans.
Exactly.
It's
it's gone. But I think I feel very blessed. I'm from how I was brought up, the friends I have and where I come from, because I feel that as a culture, and maybe it's having been brought on Kenny Everett and all those looking to England and looking to America, you were a people watcher and a performance watcher, and Bowie and, watching U2, make Ireland and Riverdance and all those things that made us be a thing on the map. Sinead O'Connor, like being people outside of our country and thing, you just felt, oh, I don't know if I could ever be part of that. Could I ever be part of that? But I love it. And it's, I feel a lot of people were looking out of Ireland, and we've been very good at kind of going out on the boat and trying to go for it. And I remember, I always think, Jesus, I don't know what I've done with my life. And, I have friends going, it's okay. Look back. It looks like it's gone well for you or whatever. But I remember when I first left work, and the first few years were, quite bonkers, weddings and Bewley's and the amazing Cobalt Cafe, Dorothy and Eddie, who welcomed me, buying me pyjamas from Penneys all the time so I could stay the night. And friends of mine from architecture doing the lights, like,
okay.
And it was done with a microphone. And the first time I decided, I'd been given an invitation to Edinburgh. And I said, I thought, oh my God, like that was a big psychological step, going Edinburgh, like everybody performs in Edinburgh. The venue fell through, and then it was David Bates from the Spiegel Tent had seen me that time, and he said, I'm putting together a new show called Le Clique, which became La Soirée, which is a circus show, and I'll put you in mine, my tent, and you'll do this. And that was the best thing I ever did. That was the beginning of me going, and I lost a lot of money that year, and I tried to never lose it again. But I realised, you have to take the risk to go abroad and make it happen. And everybody says, well, you could stay at home, but you're going to have 54 million in this country. And you go, oh yeah, okay. So to keep on touring, you have to kind of follow the sun. But from that one little, I've realised kind of, even though I'm wrecked from it, I realised very early on, jump in and see the opportunity and decide what you want to do. Say, for example, do Edinburgh. Where do you want to play? The Roundhouse. I want to play the Sydney Opera House. They all seem like crazy ideas, like friends looking at you. But they all happened. You found your motherships, you found your agents, you've managed yourself. That thing from the Edinburgh thing led me on to the Stephen Frears film with Judi Dench and Bob Hoskins. And, you know, I always knew that might never happen again, but it was an interesting thing. And I think what's coming back kind of full circle on the Irish French background is in those countries abroad, they're not used to seeing little creatures like us, and they, and not to be weird about, they love the Irish, so it's we're lucky. You know, we're welcomed when we go there.
And did your father, you said he had a romantic...
Oh, sorry, you asked me about my dad.
No,
I went
it's
way off
amazing.
my...
You allowed me there. Just
Sorry,
give me a name to bring it back.
you.
No, it's perfect. It's all working perfectly. Did the romantic idea you had of Ireland, did the reality live up to that?
It did, yeah. I think I heard from my mum. She was like, "What is this cheese? It's only one cheddar."
And you went in Passage
West, a small village. My mum was like, "No, I don't want this house. No, I don't want this house." She saw one house and went, "No, it's okay." And he bought it. And we were like, "You crazy." Beautiful house, wonderful upbringing, love Cork. And it was. He wanted us, he felt that it would be a more simple kind of innocent life in Cork. And he really adores Ireland. He's Irish, like he just wanted to be back there. And I'm, you know, I have all these backgrounds: Scottish, Irish, English, French, Spanish, Basque. But you know, this is who, you know, I love this country, and this is kind of, I love all blooming cultures, but it's just like maybe everybody feels that way about their own one. But I think from touring, I've realised maybe being a small country, and that you don't, like, when you do auditions in America and England, they're like, "You're so nervous," and you're like, all Irish people are nervous, but when we do our thing, we'll do it well. So they don't get that, like, you know. I was talking that with my partner too. He says it's just the way we are. We don't, not a certain generation doesn't go, "Hey, look how great I am." It's like, that's the most horrifying thing you could say. And there are ones like that out there, but I don't really want to be that, and I don't know how that takes. But anyway, so Mum and Dad, you know, all that music I sing now, and my sister, that's all from them. Like listening to Tchaikovsky and Gilbert O'Sullivan and the Beatles, and through my sister's wall, Bowie and Pink Floyd. Like, that haunts me sometimes on stage, because Brel, Song for Lovers, is maybe someone who was my lover in the past. Then I think of my parents. You know, there's certain things, it's, some songs kind of come from way back, and I can remember the moments I first heard them. And because my father had those cartridge 8s in the record player, we played it all day long. He worked at home, and my voice is quite deep, and I think it's because I was singing to all the Beatles and Rolling Stones, and I think it's from that. And there was never pressure from them. My father said to me, he says, "I feel bad I ever pushed you into architecture, because how did I know a little girl who was dancing around the room when she was 4 wanted to sing?" And I said, "Well, I didn't really know myself." But, and I mean, this is another part, the architecture actually helped me as a singer too, in a different way. But they were very bohemian and lovers of life, and kind of showed me the world through their music, and when they travelled, and were pretty cool when I decided to leave. You know, they were nervous. My mum said, "You're so sensitive, he's going to kill you." And I said, "It will kill me, but I think I have to go and do it." And then my father, "Maybe it's the sensitivity makes you a good singer." And I was like, "Probably." And they, you know, I think they are, you know, when they come to shows, like, God, my poor mum, when we had to do Jules Holland with their Royal Albert Hall, my father said she never saw anything. She just with her hands on the ground like this. So I'm very similar to her. I just got up on stage, and, you know, but I feel there was nothing, there was never a push towards it. There's no music in the... But
there was, but you went and did art, you studied architecture, and you...
And did, and I did well at that, like, you know, that had been all scholarships through my time there in a first class honour, so it was very hard to leave it. You know, I got and worked for 4 years and lectured. Like, it was a really hard thing to turn away from, and I've met my tutor since, I'm very close to, and they all said, "Look, we didn't want you to go, but we're so happy for you too, which meant a lot, because I was like, you know, that's what stopped me for so long. But I never think it's over. Like, I think, talk about the Grandma Moses. My mother says, Grandma Moses started painting when she was 81. I'm not, okay, fair enough. And Leonard Cohen at 36 or whatever, when he started singing. But I feel that is still there. And when the band always joke, they said, you don't approach music like a singer. You approach it like you're an architect. I said, what do you mean? And he said, or you're like, that's the space. Like, I didn't understand silence, you see, in singing. Because silence is as important as the song. It's how you land a song and how much time you give to an audience to either make them feel comfortable or make them think. And then all those weird noises that happen before a song, or things that set you up. And when you're thinking of architecture, you're thinking of the journey you take through a building: light, shade, dark, small, dramatic, intimate, explosive. And that's what you do in singing. That's what I do in singing. That's why the show is always like, I like to make a song change on a dime. And so I would explain things that way. And Fergal, who knows me, he said, you're just reliving, you're just doing architecture and song. And I was like, okay. And the band said, you know, at the start it was hard, but they said, we really enjoy it because you're not going like A over E, or I'll be like, you're a tiger going through the forest. And I was always wondering where that was from. And then I suddenly remembered this year an amazing gentleman who taught me in Cork School of Music, separate out of School of Music. I was taught by his wife, Jan Chapp, who used to be the Czechoslovakian amazing classical pianist who ran the school. And I remembered he was one going, now you are going through a forest. And I was thinking, geez, that's what I'm doing now. But he taught me the emotion. He said, don't worry about the timings. Think of like where you bring in people. And I was like, at that age, you know, you're 8 going, I think I'm getting the bus stop, and then I'm going to, you know. So little do you know that all those people you saw on stage, or old movies, or people you met, or your sister who played that. It's like filtering to, you go, because if anybody thought of how they ended up like in your job or mine, they'd be like, you know, you'd sit there with your detective kind of thing going, all right. And I think one of the most important things is, for me at the moment, you could go on and do the same show all the time, but you're changing as a person. So you've got to kind of go, that's where, when I first started, it was old style.
Yeah.
And then I thought, that's not me, because I'm not that. And now I'm looking for something else. And it mightn't necessarily, like this year I'm a bit, like we did a show, Where Are We Now? And it was a bit darker. And I just, it was after Cohen and Bowie going. And I just think if any theatre person or performer needs to be true to themselves, even if it means you lose the audience, which is an awful thing to think of, but there's no use for you to continue singing the same song, because then you're just a wind-up doll. Do you know, if you're going to lose the money or have heartache, do it on your terms. Like,
I saw a Russian proverb the other day that said, we're born in a clear field and we die in a dark forest.
Oh no,
And
is that
bad?
I have to let that dawn on me.
I think it was very Russian, but it's quite Irish
my God.
too. And
It's so true.
Yeah. And
you have to write that down for me later.
but all those experiences that we accumulate.
Absolutely. And then try and make genuine, like, I think everybody, whatever job, like everybody's searching for what gives them some kind of meaning or contentment. And performing is a weird one, because it's just, you know, I don't like having pictures of myself around the house or stuff. The whole thing of selling yourself is just such a weird thing. It's what, like you talked about the fame, you were kind of mentioning that. It's not about that, because that would have, I don't, you know, I've seen what that does to people, or do, you know, and I think enough to get people to come and see your shows, enough to have a private life. Yeah. But the way the world is now, it scares me. Social media, Twitter, the Kardashians, I'm like, you can have it. I feel lucky to be doing a kind of type of singing that never was going to be a big pop thing. It means you can keep it touring forever till you're 100 in your wheelchair, possibly into the nursing home too, and keep going. So, I mean, that was the thing I had to speak the other day on radio about Scott Walker. Now, he maybe took a serious amount of drugs and something happened when he went off to do all Tilt and all the rest. But I find admiration for a man who was such a good narrative singer who suddenly just went and did the most crazy music. And you go, I admire you because you just wanted to, you did it for you. It's funny how many people, the world over, like, you know, I can look at an audience and go, they know me, they know what I do. Those people don't know me. Oh my God, those people really, they're like, so the bigger you get, you'll get like a mix of really people who understand your work and those who just are paying money to go out and you know it's not what they're into.
Yeah.
And I think the way performances have gone, it's a bit like big kids. They want to be, please me, entertain me. And you're like, I'm not your, you know, I am so grateful people come to my show and I want to hug them all the time. But I also like to deliver the dark and the light. And I find it offensive when people go, I just want, you know, it all to be...
Right.
And I'll give them that too, but I think...
But you don't think that's what life... You see people...
I don't think life is like that. And
but there are people who think it is.
Oh God, yeah. And who think you should just be dressed in sexy outfits, wearing fishnets all the time, which might have been of a certain era. But you know, that expect that you can...
But did you... Yeah, sorry, go on.
Do you know, that expect, especially as a girl, that you have to be... They don't like a girl to... Suddenly the male thing. But it was interesting with The Cave, because with Cave I went, this is his work, I'm doing his work, so you can't tell me. That's the great thing about being a covers person, because I said I didn't write it, but I'm trying to bring it to you. And you know that there's some people going to be like, Margaret, Jesus Christ, and you're like, Margaret, don't worry, because this is going to be tough, but you'll feel better, and you may leave Brian after this, but it'll be okay. So, and I always add a bit of fun into like, my stuff is dark, but I'll add fun. I love humor and I like laughing, and I'm getting older, so I laugh at myself. And a lot of women have said they've enjoyed that. They say, thank you for not taking yourself so seriously. And that's the thing of the show, is about trying to, one moment you bring them close and hug them, and then you go, rawr, and then you'll go, ha ha. So it's like being a big kind of kid, but it is, and I think it is being like a big kid. And I think everybody, I suppose the thing is, I see it in the audience, sometimes they're shyer, and to me it's all about emotion, expressing yourself. And what I meant about the fakery was years ago, trying to be something else. And when I hear songs, I cry or I laugh. And I used to try and resist doing that, because I thought that's too much. That's, you know, and now I just let it go. I just go, if I'm not doing it necessarily for them, but it's like sometimes with sad songs, you sing them to yourself and the emotion comes over you. And as time goes on, that's all you're trying to nail, is trying to have a truthful kind of real thing on stage, give the best show you can, and it not to be bull, that it's, you know, whatever you love. Like, I think all those songwriters I love, I think they are direct. And when you think about it, right, like great old films, you know, of David Lean, or like the Billy Wilder, or, you know, Shakespeare, it doesn't end well, but it's the journey they take you on. It's what you're learning about yourself, and that's what those songwriters do to me. I'm constantly not bored, because I think, oh God, is that what that line meant? So that's the acting part, because, you know, yes, Dylan may have written Simple Twist about his breakup, but I have a breakup, and they had a breakup, and you might have a breakup, and now we're going to go and, you know, it's interesting with audiences is you can be you never sing at them, you share it and sing to them, but it's, you sing to yourself what it's about, and then you give it to them, and it's up to whatever is going on in their life. And so when I meet them from CD signing later, they go, I felt this and this, and you get a woman in her 80s about the mercy seat, and you're like, I have no clue what people like. And this story I said, which goes back to my sister going, why'd you do the dark stuff? And it just is a calling. But I realised there's an audience who want that. And also old folk songs, which have kind of made the world turn around. And, you know, Ewan McCall and Liam Clancy and Luke Kelly, there's, like you were saying, the noise of sorrow. that's what binds people, the empathy to feel something for somebody else or to laugh with somebody. And I think that's a binding thing is, you know, when I hear a beautiful sad song, it just moves me too. It's not usually, and I love a good, you know, I love old Taylor Swift, Shake It Off, like that.
Yeah.
Should try that one too.
But was your accident, like, how much, I know it had a huge impact on what you decided to, you know, and decided.
It was an absolute before and after. I would say 2 different people.
Would you?
Yeah.
And did you feel differently, but like you were going to seize the day, if that's not a cliche, but did you feel differently?
Oh no, for sure. I mean, sometimes I wish I was that person again. Not that I'd want the accident. It was quite traumatic, but I'm a scaredy cat, so I need to remind myself of why I took such a big jump. I mean, I always wanted to please my teachers and my parents, and I, you know, to do well in college, and I was working as an architect, and I was doing the music, and every Christmas they go, "You're not happy," and I was like, you know, my sister said, "You got to sort this," and she didn't know what I was unhappy about, but I knew in the back of my mind, I was like, I'd love to perform, but I just don't think I'm good enough, and I'm not. I really didn't believe it, and I used to tremble so much on stage. I'd have to kind of hold my hand. I was really bad, and I just wanted that dream, but I didn't think it belonged to me, or because I wasn't trained, I should go for it. So a few things happened along the way, like talking to Agnes Burnell, you know, hanging off her words, going, "How did you become a singer?" And I haven't trained, and she's like, "Oh, darling, you know, it's better to be an actor to sing these types of songs, not be a great singer." And she was smoking and having whiskey, and I was like, this is my kind of woman. That's possible. And so all these, holding on to a little dream of doing shows in the Dad Club, working during the day, and just trying, and then the car accident. And that was no obvious injuries, like all injuries, pelvis, hip, everything broken, and injuries on the back of my head, and then on my hand. So I couldn't use. This was quite traumatic because I didn't realize at the time, but my hand, I've been a painter since the beginning of, you know, my teens, and architecture, like, it was quite big that could have all been pulled into question. But I woke up kind of shell-shocked, thinking, I felt like a bird that had been hit against a glass or something, but I was like, oh my God, I am so not important. I think, you know, you're in your 20s and you're always like, the world revolves around me, nothing can happen to me. And I was like, oh, that's how quick, then it's over. And I didn't matter at all. I don't matter. That was the biggest release I ever had in my life. I went, I really don't matter. And I went, and I'm scared, and I'm unconfident, and I'm scared people are going to rip me apart. And I thought, but I better go and do it because I don't matter. You know, and also I'm on loads of drugs, I haven't a clue what's going on. And when at the time I got, my family were like, what is she going on about? I want to become a singer. They're like, whatever. So Fergal was taking care of me in my house, and I remember all the lovely messages written on doors, and I had to kind of, because my parents live in a higher level in Cork, I couldn't go there. So he minded me. The bed was moved down to the ground floor, you know, washed, fed, everything. And I used my left hand, and I remember just writing on the wall, "Will sing," watching really bad repeats of Falcon Crest, like until all the different music openings they had were changing. I said, this is getting, and because I'd never watched anything as an architect, I was like this going, I was like the Bold and the Beautiful. Like Fergal said, he said, you've gone from one extreme to the other, like working day and night, and now I'm like, I'm into this stuff. And that, I remember thinking, I love flower, like it was crazy stuff. I love flowers. I love people. Anybody's hurt me, I'm going to tell them they hurt me. Anybody who I love, I'm always going to tell I love them. It's very extreme stuff. It was very real. It was, I always say, like I read that Power Now book, they said, when you're close to death, you'll know, this will be the moment you'll know. And I had that experience because it was for a week or two, very before I could be operated on, very touch and go.
Right.
So all those things just came like that. And I was like, you have this one life, girl. This is it.
Yeah.
You know, you're given a second chance. And it takes a year for that kind of madness to die down, where you become normal again and kind of, oh, I can't do it. And but for the first, you're like, give me a guitar, do anything. You're on a Zimmer frame. Like
Right.
couldn't walk for months. So it's like,
And you're living in a nursing home.
I was in a nursing home in Sisters of Mercy in Booterstown. And that was pretty amazing too, because the only old people I'd ever been around was my grandmother in France. And here I was with these people sharing a room with a 90-year-old who was always trying to kind of pretending to shine the male nurse's bottom when he ran down to do her laces. I was like going, and then the TV was up loud. She was a wonderful person. And just I was vulnerable. I was scared of people touching me, or I was like, people visited and I was just looking at kind of flowers and happy to be alive and feeling so grateful. And then these dinners I had with older people going, we used to tram from Howth, and I was going, looking at him going, wonder what he was like when he was 30, and wonder what she was like with. And I thought, people are magical, people are amazing, and something kind of maybe all the wonderful things you ever felt as a child when you didn't care about tomorrow, today or yesterday, you didn't know what time was, that kind of lasted for a few months. And all you wanted was to be really real with people and really real with yourself and go, I don't care if I ever do architecture or paint again, or I don't know if I'm going to walk properly again, but I'm going to sing. So that kind of is hard. It sounds like bullshit. Sorry, excuse me. When you know, my mother is like, will say, it sounds like brr, you know, but I would tell anybody, I wouldn't want anybody to go through that, but it was the most positive thing that happened in my life and woke me up, because I am a scaredy cat.
Yeah.
But it was that thing I said of my father, just do it. It suddenly made sense. I went, that's what he's been going on about.
And that sense that there is, like, I, as an anxious person, I get that sense of like anxiety is a kind of, there's an ego involved in anxiety. It's like everybody is looking at me and
absolutely.
And they're not.
Absolutely. Most people feel, you know, that's the social anxiety of shyness.
Yeah.
You know, you feel kind of embarrassed by what you say, or, you know, I get that from gigs. Like I come off going, oh, what did I say? You know, because I'm in it. I sometimes don't even know I was dancing, and people say, you're a great dancer. You're like, what? You know, because I believe in giving yourself over, but then you come off going, Lord Jesus, what did I do? And I think that is a gorgeous thing to have. It's also very debilitating. It's very hard for people to understand, because everybody thinks a performer's a show off, but sometimes they do it because it's the pure shyness makes them want to be something else, which is what a lot of actors are like too. And I think that's a very Irish thing. I think people live, close friends know it, because you can sit happily and say nothing with them anymore or gabble, but they love you and they know what you're about. But when you meet new people, you're like, you know, and so that's the worry of going on stage every night, because that's new people and lots of them.
Right.
So that was my biggest thing. And then I didn't want to be torn apart from, you know, reviews or, you know, all that stuff that goes with.
Yeah.
And what I thought was funny too was, like, I have my little one with me here now, and
Lila.
yeah, and I don't put her on Twitter or social media or anything, but it was something that, it was a different thing, but it made me interested when she was born. That was another moment where I went, oh, now it's her. Maybe this is the gift of me. Now it's about giving to her. But I made my choices a bit better. I'd go, I don't want to do that, because now she's the one that counts. It was a lovely gift, because as a performer, it's always you, and you go, please, would somebody take the pressure off me? And now it's about her. But what you got to do also when you're having any child is show them, you know, that you're still working and something's happening. But I thought to myself, this will be interesting. How am I going to handle her life and mine in this mad world? And it was nice to know that I didn't want to utilize her as part of it. She's very separate.
Right.
She's there, and that's there, and neither the two will pass.
But did it change how you felt about work?
Yeah, it did.
Did
It
it?
made me go, I want to do Lego more. I want to dance around the park with her, put on funny dresses. And she's made me realize sometimes why I'm on stage.
Right.
And because, you know, every person is a big grown-up child.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you should never, I always feel, I go to shows a lot, and I'm always on the side of whoever's up there trying to do it. I'm like, go for it. Just, okay, it's maybe not your best one tonight, but go, you know, I feel really, everybody give them their best shot. They're trying their best.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think there's too much, with the platforms of Twitter and social media, there's too much criticism. It's blooming cruel. And if anybody, you know, they have that TED Talk, if you're not in the arena, you know, don't care about those people who are not in it. And that anxiety thing, like, that's one of the reasons would have kept me becoming a performer, because, you know, you meet people who are performing, they love themselves, and you're just like, oh, no, you know, but I don't think that stuff sells. I don't believe it when I see it on stage, and I'm never moved by it because I think it's too much.
But anxiety is an engine.
I like the people falling
but
apart
it
and
is
the
an
cracks
engine
are
as
showing.
well, though, isn't it?
Pardon?
It's an engine as well, anxiety.
Oh yeah,
'cause
I
it
mean,
just
it's what drives you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's I meant to say, like that line, there's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. It's the imperfection, it's the vulnerability and the fragility and the anxiety. And I think if you find a way to use it as rocket fuel, then fine, you know. I think there'll be a point you probably have a mental breakdown. So you probably have to take a measure of how much you drink, how much you like. You've got to kind of, you know, don't sell your soul to the devil. You're not doing anything bigger. Like a nurse and a doctor are doing far bigger things what, you know, I'm doing, but it just happens to be, this is kind of my destiny. It just happens to be in front of people. And I talked this about a good friend of mine who's a great performer, and he said we're quite similar. We love our afternoon tea and being quite, you know, polite. And he says, but it's the weirdest thing to get in front of people, like, you know. So that's I'm sure you do get to meet people who go, that's rubbish, you can't feel that, you know. But even I would never sing at a family evening. My parents have given out to me because, you know, the aunts are there and you're like, you know, it's too, I find that terrifying. Or like I've done weddings for friends for nothing. I'll never do it again. They're the worst things to do because, you know, you should get paid for what you do. People
Right.
know what you're doing.
Yeah.
The light is on you.
But then it's too intimate almost, is it?
Yeah. And also people are going, can she sing? And you're like, I'm not sure, can I sing? Can I? Because the stage, the microphone, the lights, they just, you know, it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
Now, I also think it's quite magical. I wouldn't do it. What I love in Ireland is you go into a pub and somebody starts singing and I'm in awe of that. I wouldn't do it myself. That would horrify me. I'd be like, exit. Or I'm at a party, I can see people looking at me and I'm like, I'm gone. They're like, I can see it already. I can see going, Camille do a song and you're like, boom. But I think for some people, they have stunning voices and some people who aren't performers have stunning voices. I think if I'm into the vulnerability and the madness of singing, it's got a place, but it's got to be the stage, because some things, it's like taking a Beckett play out of context. You know, unless you're doing a kind of a clever speech from something, theatre never works unless you see it kind of on its complete journey. And you do TV stuff and you have to kind of, you know, the night we did Jules Holland, I remember Fergal killed me because he said, you came in and said, we're changing the arrangement. And he said, you're what? I said, it's got to be popular. We're going on. And says, you can't do this. We're all going live tomorrow. I want him to use a drum. Aina, who's our lawyer friend, who's amazing, he always used a drum, a dustbin for a drum. And Fergal's like this, going, I'm going to kill her. And we did it. And and it was the best version we ever did. And we've never done it like it since.
Yeah.
And it was just trying to work out, okay, we can't do it for stage, but what we need for TV is this. And so I like the magical, fantastical thing of it. So it's, the scariest thing is when somebody asks you to sing at a dinner party, because you know that some people are going, she wasn't a great singer, was she? She wasn't great. And geez, the makeup. And you're like going, listen, I didn't ask for this.
Yeah. And there's no upside either, is there? There's no...
And I think it's tougher now because everybody expects, you know, bells and whistles. And I actually I put makeup on today. I still put my posters around town. I like kind of Simon's Place and, you know, visiting people. And I used to get like Camden Street, get sausages, put the posters up, buy flowers, put the posters up. And nobody recognised me because I had no makeup on. But I don't, you know... I think that's the interesting thing. That's one person on stage and that's another here. Yeah. And I don't feel too far travelled from the girl who had that accident, who went, I want to sing, and Fergal going, would do it in the Coble Cafe, and just making that choice. So it's gotten bigger, but it just maybe, you know, I mean, if there was any manager out there who could mind this crazy person, I would be delighted, you know.
And when you say you sometimes want to get back to that do you want to get back to that sense of not caring that you had?
Yeah, because my fears are, I think a lot of people you overwhelm yourself with the worry of money, making sure the band are taking care of that, making sure I've never really. I did Changeling as an album. I really put money into that, and I was delighted with that. But it took so much out of me because it was just producing it all myself. I mean,
but you're a worrier though.
I am a worrier. I am a worrier. I can't even a warrior. I've been told I'm a warrior and a worrier. Yeah, I am. I'd love, like, I mean, Jesus, I tried mindfulness, but I'm kind of there going.
Yeah, I know.
You know, like, what are those thoughts? Yeah. What's that thing going past that window?
Yeah, when I did it, I remember having this feeling of, okay, I feel great now. I'm never going to do this again. I'm fixed now.
I breathe anyway. Who cares? Oh, God. It's true. It's true. Well, I tried the 20 minutes, but I'm like.
Yeah. But it is something that it's not just that you have an anxiety about getting up on stage, or it's
I'd be worried, oh God, was that good? And I'm just terrible, like, fear of, like, you know, I think it's gone on for so long now as a performer. It's like fright or flight. I can't tell what's starting it, what's finishing it. I think people just go into an automatic thing, and you have to be kinder to yourself. They say, everybody kinder to yourself, whatever you're doing, work, not work, whatever. And I'm feeling, I've learnt, and I remember talking to Judi Dench and people about it, because they said you get more nervous as you get older. And I found that amazing with her. I just think people who care about what they do, you know.
And is the fear that if you didn't get worried, if you stop worrying, you wouldn't be caring enough about what you do?
I would think if I was on medication or something, then I probably wouldn't be making whatever that madness is. They've asked, people say, I love it when you do that. You go, what was that? And you go, I think for me personally, I believe it's the moments before on stage. It's like a channel is open to just be open to these people who came, and not going totally, thank them for coming, but I feel quite tearful sometimes in front of an audience, because it's a gratefulness to be doing it, but also I'm scared, so I'm quite petrified, and I don't want to show that to them. But then it all calms down and the show begins, and not that you're Sasha Fierce, but you become this other force to yourself, and it's this, it's going to happen, but you're worried that mightn't happen if you don't have the fear. You think, then I'll just come on and it'll be like I'm just peeling a stamp and putting it on a postcard and not caring about anything, just doing, not being alive to it. And, I remember seeing somebody like Dolores Riordan she did she did a show when we were in art college just that first year, and she had her back to the audience. I always thought, like, how did she turn around and do what she did? Because she had such shyness. Yeah. And she was great. Like, but she probably had a lot of those fears still as a performer. Yeah. So it was I always remember thinking, that girl's turning the other way.
You were in art college?
Just for the year before architecture, yeah.
And did you know her?
No, I didn't. She was just performing. I just remember thinking, what a voice. And she was not facing us. Yeah. And I just remember, and then hearing later, and I thought, wow, girl, that's why it was so sad. She really was an amazing performer. But it just, like, I was talking to someone the other day he says, I'm too shy to perform. I said, maybe you should do it in a bag. Like, people, that's your act. And then I was watching something to do with John Lennon and Yoko Ono, and they did this bagism. Yeah, I was going... I said, maybe that's what I should be doing, with two little holes going, This is my next Nick Cave song. Pretend what I'm wearing this red dress now, but now I'm wearing this.
But then you'd start obsessing about the bag.
I would, eventually. Yeah. The bag isn't looking too good tonight. Yeah, I mean, you want a free... I suppose what happens is having a drink of red wine is my go-to to just knock a bit of the edge off. Finding a face that's smiling at you in the audience, going, and knowing also, I go to gigs, so I wish the best on anybody, and I just hope that that's, you know, I think you're just really, sometimes you're wondering what you're doing, and you want people, what, like, you love those songs so much and your obsessions, and you don't want them to think you're just trotting them off like a tribute. So if people get moved by it, that's your, you know, you're not doing anything bigger than that. But it's also because you're slightly nutty, that not nutty, but you know, you've got an eccentricity. If I was just on a chair, I always wished I was just on a chair singing beautifully and being enigmatic. That would be probably a delight. But everybody who meets me after the gig going, you can't do that. You just gotta keep on doing what you're doing.
Yeah. You know? And do you think the music industry is changing? Like, is it because we had Maria Doyle Kennedy on?
She's lovely.
And she said she had a lot. She said about, you know, a woman. If you're demanding as a woman, you're described as a diva, whereas a man is described is a perfectionist.
It's a pain in the ass. I mean, it probably happened in architecture too, but like, Maria's amazing. She is, you know, an incredible singer who had CDs out. I think my music industry relationship is a bit different to most people's, in the sense, and I remember talking in London to your man who was Simply Red's manager. He was trying to give me advice, and he said, well, you're very lucky actually, because you haven't released records, but you've got a touring, you tour like what people in music industry want. You're touring all the time. And he says it's because you're a performer and you do theatres and you do music. So that's the performance thing that's kept it alive. So that's one aspect of why it's different music industry. The diva thing's interesting. That gets pulled out all the time. Like, I worked with a lighting guy recently in Australia, amazing guy, who actually turned out to be the grandson of one of my dad's best friends from Australia. It just all worked out.
Okay.
His name was Lovelady, and I was like, you wouldn't be related to. And he was on the phone, and I could tell he was a bit like this one. And by the end, he sent me an email. He says, you know your stuff about lights, and you know. And I've had to learn everything, because I like respecting what people do. I go into a venue, that's my family out there. I need to know what lights, sound, the front of house, everybody does. So when I have a conversation with them, it's not like I'm making stuff up. Now, most places love that, I have a great relationship, but you'll get some guys who will absolutely pull you apart because you're a girl saying it. Or you'll get some guys, not from my band, but you know, you're too emotional of this. So it's very easy to say that to a girl. Do you know? Because I've heard guys shout people out of it. You know? And it's the rock and roll, you know, kind of world. So you're dealing with a world of people who, you know, not saying like drugs and drink, but it's madness. And people have lived, you know, I've toured with the Pogues. It's anarchy, and the best of them are the ones that are the maddest, and that's the ones you want to work with. But when you do that, then you've got payback. So you've got to work with the ones that love you. So you're not married to them all, but you got to kind of, you know, get into a situation that you are married to them all, so they treat you well enough. So I've found the people I've worked with, I love them. I would say they're the top musicians, but I've met you know, people who are really amazing in other places, but bad attitude. And I think that's how, like, I found Maria, I would never cross Maria myself. I admire her too much, but also she's, you know, she'd say it. But I definitely think it's across the board, you get it. And who knows why? They probably don't realise that you're not just singing at the top. You're doing everything. Luckily, all my promoters, I've surrounded myself by promoters and agents who know opposite. So I tend to, nowadays, I'll just move on very quickly. You know, you bless yourself to get on stage when you're dealing with that stuff. I mean, your only biggest fear is sometimes they can ruin nobody knows this stuff when they come to a gig, is you're in the hands of the sound guy and the lights, and if they don't like you, anything can happen. So you're like going, you have to make friends before you go on stage, you know.
And is it changing for women in the music industry, like, you know, the way it is in other spheres?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I would say acting is more tough. I wouldn't like to be an actress, because I create my own shows, so I can bring it anywhere. I have to audition for somebody. I have to plead for the part. The only thing I have to plead for as a singer is maybe to get on this show or do that. I don't really mind about venues because most of them I have been able to play, and if they don't, then I'm just like, I'll play this one. Easier. I don't know, because it feels the same over the past 20 years. I think different countries, you get a different attitude. Like Germany treats artists like gods. You have your 3-course meals. The band are delighted when you booked them because they're, getting all that. Australia is always amazing with the festival. So it's a different, I suppose it's, if you were playing bars and, certain places, I think it'd be really tough. So I think sometimes having an agent and a mothership of somebody that separates you. But yeah, I do think, you have to shout a little bit more as a girl. And definitely, I agree with Maria totally that you are seen as so like, oh my God, emotional. And you're like if you get annoyed about something, or you have to be some people can be completely patronizing. Yeah. And you've just got to shut them down. Yeah. And it's hard because you don't want to not get on with people, but you also go, wait a minute, I don't want to not get on with them. But you gotta, I'm the one going out there and I've got to deliver, so you've got to shut up while I do this,
And does it help having a partner in the same creative
And I don't mean
sphere?
shut up and about it. Yeah, it does. I mean, he has another, his world is mad too, but he is really supportive of me and much more. I mean, Aidan, I admire him so much professionally. He left very similar things for both of us, actually, wanting to get actors agents, and they say, no, we have people like you on our books. And I'm like, you know what? And he left Ireland, first time he ever went abroad, and he went for it. And every decision, I didn't know his stuff, but looking at it, I think he's made such brilliant decisions. And he's quite private. I mean, I hauled him out recently, and I felt bad because I know he did it for the charity and for me, but I love the fact he is private. But he's very clear on what he will or won't do as an actor. He won't sell us his adverts for this. I think he's like, no, I didn't get it. And he doesn't care about the money. He doesn't care. We're very similar in our downtime dressing and how we are as people, why we do what we do. And he's very supportive when I'm needing kind of guidance. Right. He'll just go, he's tougher in that way. And, can learn. He's been in it much longer and just learned a lot from him. And I think the thing is, I was like, oh, Jesus, going out with an actor, what am I doing? But you could never find a more down-to-earth person. To be in that business long enough and be really down-to-earth is, our world is not based around, I'll drive him mad about my gigs coming up, but it's we know how to take that life and put it there and go, let's really live life. And that's really nice about him. And, he'll be gone now for 6 months working in Vancouver and go on his hiking trip with his friends. And so he does his own thing. But definitely, I suppose, he's in the business. He finds it a little difficult to kind of understand the probably emotions of a woman who comes off stage doing, a 90, 100-minute set. Because acting, you can get into a character and you'll get, probably trolled and given out to about what you're doing with your acting. But my thing sometimes with singing is it's me, and I take it personally because I'm putting me out there. So sometimes we discuss that, where I say, I find that hard. And
why? What are the range of emotions you can have coming off stage?
Well, how it went, but you're heightened because you've just music is multiplying everything by 100. So physically you're wrecked. You have to be kind of in a physical because you're not, like, if you're acting, you may have somebody else support you, like taking 30%, you do 50, you do 20, you know, but when it's you from the moment you step on to when you leave. And singing is a physical thing. You know, you might miss a line in acting or say it in a way, but you kind of got to be on top of your ball with everything you're doing with the singing, and it's pure emotion.
Yeah.
With acting, sometimes it's pure emotion, but it's also being still and I mean, you can do that in singing too, of course, but it's, for me, it's a different feeling. And maybe there's that thing of embarrassment of like, I can't think of songs like Misery is the River of the World when you're like, everybody row, and you're like a crazy animal, and then you do Look Mummy No Hands, which is most beautiful kind of sad song of Dilly Keane, and then you do 5 Years by Bowie, or you know, or The Mercy Seat, because you're switching to being angry, to being nice, to being, you know, that's you know, you feel kind of bonkers when you come off. But I usually chat to people, CD signing, so that's the way I come down. But you might, I think it's more so just because you feel you put yourself on the line.
Did people pester you about what's going to happen in Game of Thrones? Do you get people like saying
No,
to you?
actually, no. I mean, nobody actually.
Really?
I was starting to think, has he been telling me any truth? I saw stuff today and I went, knowing him, he's probably been off there doing stuff and I don't even know about it, you know. Not at all, actually. I mean, I'd be the camera holder when we're on the street, like people just go, and I go, and he's nice going, Camille, and I said, please don't introduce me. It's embarrassing enough, just, you know. He's really nice, and I love all the people we meet. They're lovely. But it is funny because you're just always like, you know, I should bring a camera myself, just like, I'll take the picture. And every now and again, somebody, like when he did Lorraine recently, and I was very proud, and then we come to the hallway and somebody, Camille, I'm a big fan of yours. I was going, who the hell knows me in this place like this? And it was so nice. Aidan said it made him smile. He said it was lovely that, you know, it was some person who works in ITV.
Right.
But because I never think anybody, you know. So when it happens with us, I'm like, But no, with the never Game of Thrones. What was sweet, I used to say to him, would you send me a little video of you, you know, when you're in your costume, and just a message? So he'd be like, I am sending you a raven. And I'd be like, you know. So it's all, and then trying to explain to my daughter, like, he's another person.
Yeah.
But it is weird when you look, like, I didn't really know that about him when I met him, and then I saw it later, and I just was like, and what's the funniest one? Of course, I'm looking for the one that's most him.
Right.
I'm like, oh, I can see that's him. And maybe we did a film together called Pickups, and I think that's him.
Okay.
Where I had to be him as a woman. He became a woman.
Right.
And then the woman and him got together. So we got together. It wasn't anything mad. It was, you know, a kiss or whatever. But we got together before we went out. So that was hilarious meeting on a film.
Yeah.
I mean, we met before then. It was months and years of hello. And then we met doing the film, you know, that met on a boat. And so it was like, it was nice because it was like meeting. He wanted to get someone who he thought was the closest to him. If there was a woman that was close to him, who would that be? So he chose me. I said, but you don't know me. He says, well, I saw the poster with the rabbit. And I said, I haven't seen you with any rabbits. You know, and he's quite talkative, like the two of us, like in our own lives is quite talkative, you know.
And your daughter, do you think like she will be a singer?
I don't know. Her dad's, you know, a singer, and I don't push it. I want her to be a happy little girl, and I'm not going to be, you know, I found all that years ago like the pressure of having to do well was, you know, in ways I just thought, I wonder could I give the gift to Lila just to be, you know, in the end you're going to try and find out what your life is about anyway, and maybe it's not the social direction that most people take. And so she only heard, I brought her to her dad's gig in Cambridge last year, and she only heard both of us last year. So she was like, because we kind of kept it away from her. Yeah. And now she kind of listens a little to daddy on the phone here, and then, oh, mommy does that. Right. And she loves to draw, and, you know, it could come. And when I suppose I'm like any other, like you always hear of these people going, don't put your daughter on, like people who are actors going, don't do it. But she's she's come up and tried to, I've got like little things of her trying to play the drums and it's all sweet, you know. As she'll probably be a drummer. That'll be a nightmare up until her 16th birthday.
You just have to turn down her requests for drums as long as you can.
But it is lovely. What I had forgotten was, you know, when she learned how to speak and when she was looking at trees and just that wonderful immediacy and innocence that a child has, which you forget. And that, sometimes when I'm scared on stage, I just think of her and I just go, nothing really matters. None of, you know, I will try my best and hopefully they will like this, whatever bloody things in my head. But she's there waiting at home. And that's the biggest thing that helped me kind of, and also that was part of it, but also as I got older, I've always been very close to my girlfriends from architecture and we all met recently. So slowly, you know, if there had been this big drive of like having to do more gigs and make them bigger gigs, I can see that that can still happen, but now that's not the main thing. Now it's like, do it well, keep trying to do the best you can, but try and see your friends, try and give her a happy life. So it's kind of, you know, somebody said to me before, I was worried when I had Lila, oh my God, like my career is going to take a nosedive. And when she was born, I went, it is, and it's going to be great, and I'm going to love it. Because this is, you know, it is going to goal change. And it was so brilliant. You know, I just, of course I, you know, booked every gig because I was afraid I wouldn't be gigging because I had, you know, make sure that I always say to her, this is how you got that little chocolate because Mummy went up and Daddy's doing this, you know. But I think they always joke that singers and actors are children that haven't grown up. So learning that from her, that joyousness and that kindness and affection and wonderment that you lose sometimes, especially in this age of technology and all information, you lose that wonderment. You just get a little jaded and go, you know, you don't want gigs to become gigs. You want them to be, you know, like when your child dances in the middle of the floor and then rolls around, you go, I'd love to be able to do that in the supermarket, but I can't. But you think, what if I could? So you do it on stage instead, you know. So tapping into that. And I definitely think getting older and maybe when you look at all those, I always talk about X Factor and Kardashian, but it definitely makes you go, I don't want that life. I don't want that life. And it makes you start knowing what you don't want. And then, you know, not to, I think working with other kind of artists that you love, and I suppose anybody who's in their job, you're just trying to keep that vocation going and keep it educational and learning. So just keep on educating yourself. And you may end up singing in the nursing home or for the people in the home or still doing the big stages. But just always remember your intention of why you were doing it. So then it'll be okay, you know, or go back to mindfulness like for one more. Or take up serious drugs and take crackhead when you're 80. You know, I'll do all the things. I'll dye my hair pink. No, I'm going to go for it when I'm 80. It's all I'm pink hair and I'm going to be, you know,
inspired by the
taking all the stuff I didn't take ever before.
I think on that note we might end it, Camille. Perfect. Thank you.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Don't do it at home, folks, performing or that other stuff.
Well, that was an experience. And the incredible Camille O'Sullivan, who is always worth listening to. And don't forget, before we go, to subscribe to Ireland Unfiltered on all the usual channels. See you next time.